What's up, guys? Good morning. Good morning. Hopefully, you guys could hear me okay. If not, let me know in the chat. So, if you're here hanging out this morning, thanks so much for showing up. I really appreciate it. I really didn't think anybody was gonna come and hang out. Oh, 1 second. Got some audio delay there. Really didn't think anybody was gonna come hang out. It's been a while since I've done one of these live streams. But I'm really excited because I've got a couple of proposals out right now, actually, for a few different Shopify businesses. And one of the things that I realized, kind of looking into what had changed since the last time I had worked on a Shopify theme, is there's a lot of development changes that happened. For example, end of 2021 or end of January 2020, Shopify dropped support for Slate, which was how they used to be able to do kind of that local development workflow. So now they strictly use this tool that they have called themekit. And honestly, it's something that I've never really played with, something I haven't really tried. So I really wanted to kind of dive in to figure out how we could actually go from having absolutely no Shopify store, no account, nothing like that, to actually being able to work on a theme and push that theme up to Shopify and hopefully set up some sort of development workflow that kind of makes sense, where the client can have their live website and we can have a kind of development site that we're working on pushing changes to and checking them before we actually go and serve them live. So that's what we're going to be diving into today. If you guys don't know who I am, my name is David Martin. I am a web designer and a web developer. I'm also an agency owner. I own the agency UX Hacks. We help our clients leverage really good UX practice to hack into their traffic's potential and boost their conversions. So that's kind of a little bit about me. I'd love to know who's here in the chat. Feel free to, drop your name in the chat. Let me know what you guys are going to be working on today. And if you guys want to follow along, I dropped some documentation in the chat as well. We're going to be going through that documentation. But first, let's go ahead and jump into my browser. And we're just going to go and set up a Shopify account. So this is the one step that I did prior, just to make sure that you guys wouldn't have to pay for anything, because as a developer, I don't want to bring on any additional costs that I don't have to bring on if I can avoid it. What's great about Shopify is, first of all, they have a 14-day free trial if you just want to set up the regular trial. But they also have what's called a partners account, which you can go to by visiting partners.shopify.com. And what this will do is essentially allow you to create development sites, right? So as many development sites as you need to. Obviously, there's going to be some features or functionality that you're not going to have access to because you're not paying for an account, but that's okay. We don't really need the checkout. We just need to be able to go set up a store and actually upload some products and set up a theme and then customize that theme. So if you're following along, shopify.com/partners, and you're going to want to hit join now. That's going to ask you to create an account. I've already done that, so I'm going to go ahead and log in. And very straightforward. It's going to ask you to, give you some business information. So I'll go ahead and set that up. And I'm just going to set this up to a co-working space that I have my business registered to. It's asking me to tell them a little bit about myself. So I'm going to say that I'm going to be building new Shopify stores for clients. Again, if you already have a Shopify store, don't worry about this, just sign in. But this is a great way for you to build Shopify stores for clients on your account and then send that over to them as soon as it's ready to go ahead and get launched. I don't necessarily have a client that I'm currently working with, so this is just kind of like a test account, and then they want to know what e-commerce platforms I've actually worked with. So I'll go ahead and put some of the ones that I've worked with in the past. And then I have read and agreed to the partner program agreement. And that's it. It's really that simple to kind of go and get started. So here we can go ahead and click to create a store. If you're seeing a message that says to actually verify your email address, you might want to jump in and do that first. I've already done that to save a little bit of time. But the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a store. And I'm going to set this up as a development store. So this means that, again, we're going to be setting up a demo store for a client, and then we can transfer ownership to a client. What's great about this is if we transfer ownership to a Shopify account that hasn't paid yet and they go and they actually pay, we actually get some recurring revenue from the first year, which I think is really, really cool. And one of the great benefits of being a Shopify developer. So definitely recommend, if you are working with clients, that you set up a partner program and that you work on referring your clients through that account just to make some extra cash. So we'll go ahead and name the store. Obviously, this is not going to be for the agency brand, but it's just going to be easier to have it all tied to the agency for me. And then for the password, let's do something simple. So I don't forget it. Developer preview, this is one of those things that, again, it's new. I'm not really sure what it is. A lot of this stream is going to be me sitting here and trying to figure out how to do this stuff. So I apologize if you're here looking for a masterclass from someone who is super experienced. That's not me. I've been building websites and themes for the past 10 years. But in terms of Shopify, we handle very few Shopify clients as it is. And lately, again, a lot of things have changed. So we're just trying to kind of catch up. So let's see here. Shopify's developer preview gives you early access to new features of Shopify so you can build on the platform with confidence. We don't necessarily need that. I just want to use the features that I know my clients are going to have. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. That's going to go and create our store. Awesome. It says it's ready to go. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what we can do here. Obviously, we can go and add some products, but what we're really interested in is in customizing our theme. So let's go ahead and get started with this. Now, if you're setting up Shopify for the first time, Shopify automatically goes and gets you set up with a theme called Debut, and that's what we're seeing here. So that Debut theme, we could click here to preview and let's see what that looks like. It's very bare bones, right? But it kind of gives us everything we need to just get started right away. They have all sorts of different themes. They have free themes in their theme library that you can go and you can explore. They also have paid themes, which if you're dealing with a paid client, a lot of times this is what I recommend, is going and actually checking out some of their premium themes. They have got some really, really nice looking ones in here. And a lot of the functionality is already going to be built out with for you. There obviously is an option for you guys to go and create a blank theme that has absolutely nothing in it, but that's a little overwhelming even for me, because you're just starting from nothing, right? And we're gonna do that today just so you guys can see what it looks like. But if you're doing this for yourself, you're doing it for a client, you'll really be saving yourself a lot of time and effort if you actually think about going and grabbing one of these free or paid themes. So let's look at one of these paid themes, and here you can see what it looks like. This one's very graphic, very colorful. I like this one a lot, actually. But they've got some really nice ones that are free, which is probably what we'll be doing. But let's look at this one. And let's add it to the theme library so that we can take a look. So the way that Shopify works is actually pretty interesting. You have your current theme, which again, if we go and we preview, it's the one that we started with, but it also lets you add themes to your theme library. And the reason that that's really cool is because it works almost like a staging environment where you could work on this theme in the theme library. And once you've got it to a point where you're happy with it, you can actually go and then deploy that or publish it, so that instead of having the debut theme as the theme that's being shown to customers, we can go ahead and add this new theme. So let's go ahead and hit customize. And I just want to walk you guys through this customizer and how it kind of works, because it's really interesting and it's really different than what I'm used to coming from a lot of WordPress development. So here we can see this template, which is the home page. If we want to change which template we're editing, we can go ahead and hit this drop down. And this drop down will actually give you all of the different page templates that exist on your website. So we're cool with the home page. We've got the header, we've got all this stuff in the body, and then we've got the footer. And then of course we've got some theme settings. So let's open this stuff up. Here we can add a logo image. We can play with all of the different options that we have here for the actual header. Same for the footer. We can go ahead and change all this stuff around if we want to. Very easily drag and drop or change the actual positioning of some of these elements. We can do things like show payment icons. It's not showing up, but that's okay. And then what's really cool about this is we have access to what are called sections, and these sections are pretty much built out already for you in your theme, so that you could actually come in here and, you know, instead of having to code a bunch of stuff yourself, you can say, hey, I want to add a collection up here to the top. You've already got a section for that, featured collection, right? It'll add it all the way to the bottom. We can add a page, we can add a banner, and it's all set up for us. All the code is already set up for us. It's already mobile responsive, which is really, really cool. So let's say we want to add a banner right under this top image. We can go ahead and select it. It'll add it here to the bottom, and we can very easily just drag this all the way to the top. And now we've got our banner all the way at the top. Let's go ahead and put that one under. You can go and hide sections if you want to see what that would look like. And then of course you can come in here, add images, change the text. Really, really cool stuff. But what I want to know is how we can go and actually set up some of these theme features and work on it locally on our environment. And what I mean by that is, instead of using this customized option to edit your theme, and then jumping in and actually editing the theme style or the theme code, which let's see how we can go. Okay, so if we go to theme actions, then we can click edit code. And this is the way that a lot of people edit the code on their Shopify websites. The reason that I don't like to do this is because we lose a lot of features that you kind of need if you're actually going to be seriously developing themes for Shopify or extending or customizing themes for Shopify. The first and most important for me is the ability to actually save your save your progress and track revision history. So one of the things that I want to do is I want to set up Git on my local environment. And if you guys are not familiar with what Git is, let's talk about that for just a second. So Git is a free and open source version control system. And what this does is it essentially tracks changes to files that as you're making them. So if you go and you're actually changing a lot of these files that are in these templates. So let's go into this index.liquid. Here we can see content for index. If we're actually coming in here and making changes, and let's go ahead and do this one here. Just adding an H1 tag and then hitting save. Now, if we come and we preview our store, you can see our change is live there. My problem with this again is that you only have version history on a file by file basis, which it's great that at least that's a feature. But once you're actually editing a bunch of different files, it's kind of hard to look at all of the different files that you may have changed. And if you made a mistake or you want to revert a specific update, that can get a little bit complicated. You're going to have to go into the file. You're going to have to remember which time stamp it was that you actually made that change. So there's no commit message or there's no message saying what changed. So you're just going to have to kind of go through each one of them manually and figure out which was the correct one, which is not ideal, right? So I want to install Git. I want to make sure that that works. If you don't have Git installed, go ahead, git-scm.com, and then go ahead and download if you're following along. If not, don't worry about it. We'll get to that in a second. The other thing that I learned, which is actually really interesting to me, is that Shopify dropped support earlier this year for SCSS directly in their site. So it used to be that you would have this theme.scss file, and in that file, you would have all of your SCSS, and when you would save that or change it, it would automatically compile your SCSS into CSS and then put that on your store. That's no longer supported by Shopify. They said that apparently people had really slow load times on their site or really slow load times actually here in their code editor, which again, it kind of sucks for us as developers that we have to go through this extra effort to set up this local environment just to get SCSS to work. But at the same time, it's very exciting because instead of just having this one gigantic file, which if we look at it, you know, it's almost 7,000 lines of code, we actually are going to have the ability now to set up partials or different folder structures to better manage our SCSS. So we're going to be doing that as well. And the way that we're going to be doing that is using Gulp. So if you're not familiar with what SCSS is, let's talk about that for a second. So it's CSS with superpowers, and honestly, that's so true, because it gives you all sorts of different features that you don't normally get with CSS. So if you don't have this installed, definitely come into sas-lang.com/install, and then you're gonna just want to run this command here, npm install global SASS, and we're gonna go ahead and just open up our code editor. I use Visual Studio Code. I used to use Atom, but honestly, Visual Studio Code really does the job for me. So let's go ahead and open that up. And then I'm just gonna open a terminal and I'm going to check to see if I have SASS installed. And the way that I'm gonna do that is by running sas-v. Let's see, it's been a while. I might have it only locally installed. So let's see. Let's start by creating a folder. We're going to do this on our desktop just to make things easier. And we're going to call this Shopify tutorial. Cool. So then we're going to want to cd into that. Hit clear. And now we're inside of our folder for our Shopify tutorial. Next, let's go ahead and run this SASS command. npm install globally SASS, and just make sure we have SASS installed globally. That's done. Next, I want to go ahead and get started with Git. So I'm going to git init, and that's going to create a Git repository. Let's go ahead and open this up in VS Code as well. Go. And now we've got our folder here. Go back into this. Cool. And now we can test that we've got Git by creating a README file. And running git status. Now we can see that we've got an untracked file. So let's really quickly just go and set up a Git repository for all of the work that we're going to be doing. And we're going to be doing this with GitHub. So I'm going to go to github.com. And you don't have to use GitHub. You can use Bitbucket or any other service that allows you to create Git repositories. But for this, we're going to go ahead and just use GitHub. And we'll leave this public so that at the end of this, if you guys want to grab the code, you can. Let's go ahead and create that repository. Cool. So now we can go and run some of these commands. We've already git init. We'll do the git add readme, which is the file that we created. And we can commit, git commit, and set the message as initial commit. So git commit, leave a message. Next, we'll want to go ahead and add origin. If you're working on branches, you could obviously set the branch as well. It'll default to main, so I'm not worried about that. But this is the really important command here, git remote add origin. And what this does is it tells Git on our local computer to come and look at this URL when you're pushing or pulling changes to this repository. So we're just telling it where on the internet this repository exists. And if you are not sure if that was properly set up, you can run git remote -v, I think, and that'll tell you what are the different URLs that it's looking at for its repository. So here you can see we've got a fetch URL and a push URL. If you're not sure what that means, don't worry about it. And now we can go ahead and just git push. So git push origin master. If this is your first time using Git, you're going to have to kind of get set up, log into Git through your terminal, and then probably get some credentials set up using GitHub. We're not going to go through that because mine's already set up. So here you see the message. It pushed to this URL in the new branch, which is master. So now if we refresh this, we shouldn't see this message anymore. Now we see the README file that we created, which is great. That means that our changes are being tracked. So now anything that we add to this folder, we'll be able to have access to here in version control. So that takes us to what the next step is, which is to start with Shopify Theme Kit. So Shopify Theme Kit allows us, again, to use workflows like Git to work with a team of theme developers, which as an agency owner, this is really important for me because I don't want to be the one that's coding everything. I want to be able to hand this off to a team and have them kind of take care of things for me, and I just want to make sure that everything is being done correctly. It also allows us to upload themes to multiple environments. So that's really what we want. We want to be able to have our website, our development environment, which is what you're seeing here. And then when we're ready, we want to be able to push that up to a client website. And ThemeKit is going to help us do that. And then we can look for local changes, so changes to our actual local environment. And as we're making changes, ThemeKit will automatically push those changes up to our environment so that we can very, very quickly just refresh the page and see what we've done. So you're going to want to, again, go to shopify.dev/tools/themekit if you're following along. And then they've got this getting started tutorial that we're going to be working through. So we've already come in here and we've set up a partner account. So we don't have to do that anymore. Next, we want to install ThemeKit. And if you're on Linux, Mac, or Windows, they've got different instructions on how to do that for each. So we're going to use the Windows instruction, and I don't have Chocolatey installed. This is kind of a package manager, I'm assuming, similar to Homebrew. So we're just going to get Chocolatey installed here on Windows. So here, there's a command that we can go ahead and run, and we need to do that with PowerShell. Okay, so here there's a little command that we got to run first. Let's go ahead and open up PowerShell. For Windows, if you're using Mac, again, follow those instructions instead. All right, so let's go ahead and run get execution policy. It returned restricted, so now we have to run this command just to make sure we have the correct access level to use Chocolatey. So yes, we want to change the execution policy. Okay, so the reason this didn't work is because we didn't run it as administrator. So let's go ahead and open up PowerShell again as administrator this time and click run as administrator. Windows is going to check to make sure that that's actually what we want, which it is. And we're going to run this one more time. Again, restricted. So let's run that second command. Yes, this time it worked, which means that we can run this other command, which will get Chocolatey installed. And now we'll wait for that to install on our local machine. Awesome. So that's done. We didn't see any errors, just a warning. So now that Chocolatey is installed, I can go ahead and close out PowerShell, and we'll go back into this tutorial. And let's try to run Choco install themekit here. As Choco is not recognized. Let's see why that is. So let's try doing this as a administrator on PowerShell and see what went wrong. This is one of the not so fun parts about development, is you sometimes have to work through these errors. So it does work. For whatever reason, it needs me to do it through PowerShell. That's fine. Let's go into our desktop. Okay. Sorry about that. Let's just make sure that we've got the folder that we need. Look at our directory, Windows System 32. And let's see where our directory is supposed to be. So inside users, UX hacks, and then desktop. Great. So now we're in that directory, and now let's try to run that Choco install command. There we go. Now it's installing themekit. It says themekit package files install completed. It's asking me if I want to run a script to finish the installation. Say yes, I do want to run that script. There we go. So now we've got themekit installed. Next, let's go ahead, and this is done globally, which is why it didn't want me to do it here in the terminal. It needed administrative access. So we're going to close out PowerShell for now, and we're going to move to step number 2, which is generating API credentials. So we have already access to this Shopify website. Next, we're just going to follow these instructions to get some API credentials set up. So let's go Shopify. We'll click on apps, and then near the bottom of the page, manage private apps. Here we go, manage private apps. Private apps are currently disabled. We want to enable private app development. I understand. Now we can go ahead and create a new private app, and that'll help us generate those API keys that we need. Hopefully you guys are following along. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the chat, and I'm happy to get those answered for you guys. All right, so we'll call this local theme workflow. We'll just add our email in there. Next, let's go ahead and set up the permissions. And the permission that we're going to need to give it for this API key is really just to be able to look at our themes. So we want to be able to read and write to our themes. And here you can see that in number 7. Now we'll go ahead and hit save. Create our app, and that'll give us our key. So let's move on to the next step. We want to connect to an existing theme. And the way that we do this is by running this command in our terminal. So this is a theme get command. And then we're going to want to put our password in. and then our store URL. And for our password, we'll want to use the API password that we just grabbed. And then for the store URL, that is this URL that we have here. So in our case, uxhacks.myshopify.com. So let's go ahead and run that really quickly. So theme get list password is equal to the password that we just grabbed. And we'll change this after the live stream for security purposes. You don't want to give out your API password ever. Luckily, there's not too many people here, so I'm not too worried about it. Next, our store URL, which is uxhacks.myshopify.com. And we'll go ahead and run that. Let's see what that error is. Command not found. Theme is not recognized as the name. Let's see if we need to run this here. Because we can see that themekit install was successful. So let's try that one more time using PowerShell. If you're using Mac, you don't have to worry about this. You can just run it using sudo. So theme get -- list -- password is equal to API password, and then store is equal to uxhacks.myshopify.com. We'll run that. And here we can see the themes that we have available. So we've got debut and we've got express. So next we can set up our config files. So apparently this config.yaml file that we need to create is going to be the one that's managing our local connection to our Shopify store theme. So we've already created a directory for our theme to live on our local environment. We've already CD'd into it. Now let's go ahead and run this command again. But this time we're gonna download a specific theme to work on. So in our case, we're just gonna work on debut, which is going to be the most common theme that people start with. But again, if you've set up other themes the way that we did in the beginning, you can go ahead and just use that theme ID. I generally don't recommend you ever work on a live theme, but in this case, we've got our own development environment. This is not a live Shopify store, so I'm not worried about it. There we go. Cool. So let's go ahead and run that command. Theme get -p, and let's grab our password. Here, let's set our store URL. And let's set the theme ID that we want to grab as the ID for the live theme, which is debut. Now we can go ahead and run that command. Something went wrong there. Even though it does end in .myshopify.com. Clearly it didn't run. Let's see if we did something wrong here. Store equals uxhacks.shopify.com. Not sure what happened there. Let's just go ahead and retype that out. Invalid store domain. Why? This is one of the not so fun parts of being a developer, having no idea why an error is occurring. Let's go ahead and just copy the URL. Get rid of all this extra stuff. Why is that not working? Let's just run an update and make sure that it's not because of this update. Let's try that command one more time. This thing is killing me. Oh, when in doubt, we'll Google the error and see what's up. Okay, well, let's try this with the longhand, the way that this guy is saying. Let's hope that this works and they just have outdated documentation. Very frustrating stuff, but we'll get through it. Store -- password -- theme. Invalid theme ID. Well, at least we got through the store one, right? So let's try this again with just dash. Oh, I think I forgot dash. No, unknown flag. So let's try this with just -e. Oh, there we go. Whew. So all we did here is ignore this documentation that is wrong for whatever reason, and we use -- password instead of -p and -- store instead of -s, and that resolved our issue. Yeah. So now this is going and pulling all of the theme files down into our local environment or here into our VS Code. And now we can see that all of these files have been added. So here we can see our templates, our snippets, our sections, all that good stuff. So let's give this just a minute to finish updating. And then we'll be able to run a git commit so that we can go and we can store this initial commit on our Git repository that we created. Just stuck on 58% for some reason. Give this another minute before I cancel it. Hope that it works. It does give us this warning, which is cool, just letting us know that this is actually the live theme on UX Hacks. There are also these instructions here on creating a new theme, which is really cool. So this is, again, if you want to kind of start from scratch, which I think would be great to kind of give it a try in a little bit. But for now, let's go ahead and edit the existing theme that's there. Not sure why this got stuck. So we're just gonna cancel it, I guess. Oh, it says that it got all 152 files in there. So I guess it wasn't actually stuck. I don't know. Let's go ahead and again, we'll just open up this terminal that we have and run git status. And now we can see all of the different folders and files that were created that are now being tracked by Git because of the way that we set this project up. So now we can go ahead and just git add all of these files and folders. We get all of these really annoying warnings just because we're on Windows, but don't worry about that. We'll go ahead and clear it. Now, if we run git status, we can see that all of these different files have been created. Now we can go ahead and create a commit and just say initial commit for debut theme. We can go ahead and push that up. And now if we look at our GitHub right here and we reload, now we see all of the different folders and files that are a part of our Shopify theme. Very cool. So next we can run this theme watch command. And what that'll do is it'll watch for changes in our local environment. And anytime that we make a change to a file, it'll go and it'll upload it over to our website. So let's refresh this. Let's see what it looks like. And let's make a super small change and see what happens here. So to open up our theme files and let's go into templates. Let's go into index liquid. And let's run that theme watch command. So theme watch, again, we're gonna have to do this through PowerShell. We're gonna have to figure out another time how to make sure that this works through our terminal. So theme watch. So now this is actually watching changes. So because this is the live theme, it's letting us know that we'll want to pass this allow live flag. So let's go ahead and run a theme watch -- allow live. Now it's saying that it's watching for file changes to our theme. Go ahead and just put this over here. And let's make a change really quickly. We'll add an H1 and say this is a change to the live website. We'll close our H1. Add a P tag under this. Say this is pretty neat, right? Close our P tag, save it. Now on the right hand side, you can see that it's saying, hey, we've processed your change and we've updated your change. Now let's go ahead and check our actual website. Let's refresh. And now we can actually see our changes here live on our website. And we can start editing our theme as much as we want. And we've got version control set up, so we can very easily, run git status. We can see which files we've actually changed. We can upload that to our repository, and we can start this development workflow that we've been working on. Now, there are a few other things that I want to get set up. The first being SCSS. And the reason that I want to get that set up is just because I don't want to work in this gigantic theme.css file. It's not a really good way to kind of work. I'd rather leave the theme code as is and then go ahead and create our own custom code, as opposed to coming in here and editing this 7,000 line file, which is just massive and kind of overwhelming. So let's go ahead and get that set up. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new folder. And we're going to call this SCSS. And inside of this SCSS file, we're going to create a global.scss file. And this is going to be where we pull in all of the different components or all of the different files that make up our SCSS file that we're going to be creating. So let's go ahead and create a new file inside for now. And we'll call this custom.scss. And let's go ahead and just write some very basic code. So let's do header and body. And let's make that background color red. And because we're using SCSS, let's go ahead and have some fun with variables. And we'll create a variable called color red. And we'll set that. I'm going to have to refresh on how to do SASS variables because it has been a while, but that's okay because we've got our documentation right here. There we go. So, colon. Very cool. Go back in here, and we're just going to set this color red to the color red. And now instead of actually using this color red, we can go ahead and just use the variable. And the reason why this is awesome is because if you've got a theme and you've got a client, they've got brand guidelines, they've got a bunch of different colors, instead of coming in here and remembering the colors every single time, like let's say it's not actually red, they use let's say that's the color red that they use, right? Instead of having to copy and paste this color all throughout your SASS files, we can just go and use the variable color red, and that'll automatically say, all right, I'm going to look to see what color that is. Got it. Let's go ahead and make that change. So we've got this file that has our custom SCSS. Now let's go ahead and let's import that into our global files. And let's just make sure that we're able to import correctly, because again, it has been a while. Here we go. So let's import custom.scss. Cool. So we could come in here and we could run this pre-processing command every single time. And what that will do is it will go and it'll generate the output CSS file that we need. But that's kind of a lot of work for me. I don't want to remember this. I'm notoriously lazy as a developer. I'd rather just run a very simple command one time and it'll automatically go and get things set up. So we're going to actually use another service called Gulp. So let's go ahead and look up the documentation for that. Gulp.js. Now, if you don't have Gulp installed, you're going to want to hit get started. You're going to need two things. The first thing you're going to need is you're going to need Node installed. So let's just go ahead and see if we have Node dash version. We do have Node. Let's check if we have npm installed. We do have npm installed. Great. That saves us some time. You can also check to see if you have npx installed, which we do. If you don't have those things installed, then you're going to want to go ahead and get them installed. And you can do that by going to Node.js and then getting it installed for your specific program. So I would recommend, getting the most stable release as opposed to the one with latest features. And then this will kind of run you through the documentation on how to get everything going. Node is a JavaScript environment that we're going to be using to run this SASS pre-processing, and we're going to be using Gulp as the script manager to actually execute those tasks. So we've got that done. Let's go ahead and check to see if we have Gulp installed. Gulp --v. Let's see. Check Gulp version. So Gulp-v. Doesn't look like we put a double flag or a double dash. Gulp-v. Looks like we don't have Gulp installed, which is a little bit surprising to me. But that's okay. We're going to go ahead and get that installed. We might have Gulp installed globally, so I'm going to try running this command first. Yep. And now make sure we have the command line utility installed for Gulp. By running npm install -- global gulp CLI. Give that a little bit of time. Done. Next, we want to create a package.json file in our project directory. So we're already in our project directory. Let's go ahead and run npm init. This is going to create a Node package manager project inside of our directory. Package name, fine. Version, fine. I'm just going to hit enter. You really don't have to come in here and edit all this stuff unless you want to. Once that's done, we can see that it's created this package.json file for me. Very cool. Now we'll want to install Gulp in our dev dependencies. So we'll run that command npm install -- save -dev Gulp. Now, once we run Gulp -- version, we should have Gulp installed locally here on our project. You'll see that this package JSON file was updated with a dev dependency of Gulp. Very cool. And now if we run Gulp -- version, for whatever reason, it doesn't work. What? Let's give this a try. Here on our PowerShell, I'm going to cancel. Let's see. Control C. Yeah, it's not working. Oh, there we go. Let's run Gulp -- version. Still not working. That's so strange. saying it's not digitally signed. Let's see what the heck that means. I thought we already fixed the execution policy issue. So I'm very surprised why this is happening. But I guess we didn't. Now if I run gulp -- version, it works. There we go. Now it works on our terminal as well. All right. A lot of steps. Hopefully you guys are hanging in there. But let's just keep on moving. So now we can go ahead and create a gulp file. So let's go ahead and do that. Clear this. And let's just create a file here, and we'll call it gulp file.js. And we're just going to create this very simple function called default task. It's not going to do anything, but it's going to allow us to just run a super simple test. So let's save that and let's run gulp. Now it's saying it's using the gulp file. So it's looking in this file. It found this function called default task, and it's running the default command. So here you can see it's starting default, and then it finished default after 1.33 milliseconds. Super fast because there's nothing in it, right? Very cool. So that means that now it works. We've got the exact same result. Let's go ahead and actually start creating a useful task. And our task is going to have to do a few different things. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we want to get SASS set up. And the reason we need to do that is so that our local node environment knows that we actually are using SASS. And if we go to package.json, let's expand this so you can see, we can see everything that's in here. Right, and the only dev dependency that we currently have is Gulp. So we're going to want to make sure that we've got SASS as a dev dependency as well. So let's go ahead and get that set up. Go to the SASS website, Gulp SASS. And we've got Node Package Manager, which is our new best friend for installing some of these dependencies. Now let's go ahead and install Gulp SASS by running this command. npm install Gulp SASS. So this is asking us if we want to add node_modules, which is going to be created when we add these kinds of dependencies to a git ignore. A git ignore, what that does is it tells Git not to drag the files or folders inside of it. And the reason we want to do that is because node_modules is going to be unique to every single machine. So it really depends on the type or the version that you have installed of Node. It might be different for your other developers. So we want to make sure that we take that folder that is going to be a huge and heavy folder, and we just add it to the git ignore. What's great about VS Code is it's automatically asking me if it wants to do it for me. I'm going to hit yeah, because why not? It'll create this git ignore or this .git ignore file, and it's just adding node modules to it, which is great. So now we've added npm gulp SASS. And if we go to our package.json file and we scroll down, we can see that gulp SASS is set as a dependency. So let's pull up a tutorial, get refreshed a little bit on how this works. We've got Gulp installed. You could use the flag --save-dev if you want to add it as a dev dependency. For me, it doesn't really matter. These files, this package.json, Gulp file, git ignore, these are not actually going to go into our Shopify theme. Shopify is very strict about what files and folders it allows into its themes, and it's pretty much limited to the stuff that was installed at first, which is these folders up here: assets, config, layout, locales, sections, snippets, and templates. All this other stuff is just for us. That's why we set up GitHub and Git to track these file changes, but they're not actually going to exist on our Shopify store. In fact, the SCSS folder that we created and these SCSS files that we created are also not going to be uploaded to our actual Shopify store. That's why we need to make sure that when we write the command, that it imports or that it creates a CSS file inside of this assets folder, because if it's not inside of this assets folder and it's inside of this SCSS folder, it's not actually going to be uploaded to our Shopify theme, which is not what we want. All right. So here's an example of a Gulp file that uses Gulp SASS. And they created a task here that sets the source for the SCSS files to look at. And then it sets a destination. So we're going to do something very similar. We're also going to do a clean task after, but let's start very simply by creating a Gulp task for Gulp SASS. And I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. Sorry, but I'm not a coding genius by any means. So I'm going to pull up a video that I looked at yesterday here on my other monitor that actually runs us through how to use SCSS in Shopify, updated for 2021, just so that I'm making sure that we're writing the correct commands here for Gulp SASS. Okay. So here we can see how we would run, or how we would compose these tasks. Let's go ahead and make this full screen. And let's go into our Gulp file. Let's delete this default task. And let's first create a variable. And let's set that to, let's name it Gulp. And that's going to require this Gulp package that we've created. Next, let's go ahead and add themekit as well. And actually, now that I think about it, we actually have to install the Node version of themekit. So we installed it using the basic themekit command. Shopify, their documentation, while useful, doesn't necessarily run you through how to create this Node version of a local working environment. So we're going to look that up really quickly. Shopify-themekit. Here we can see the npm package. And we're going to just install really quickly to our environment here that package as well. Okay, now if we want to make sure that that worked, again, go into our package.json. And now here we can see we've got Gulp, and we've got Shopify themekit and Gulp SASS installed as a dependency. So going back to our git ignore, or our Gulp file, excuse me, let's go ahead and set a new variable here for SASS. And we're going to require Gulp SASS, which we've just installed as well. And now we can start to create tasks. So the reason that this is helpful, again, is because we don't want to go and write a long command every single time that we want to compile our CSS file from our SASS files. We just want to run a super simple command like gulp SASS, and it'll automatically go and execute. So let's go ahead and do that by creating a task, and then we'll name that task SASS. And then inside of that, we'll pipe a function. And what we want to do is we want to return the source for gulp, and we're going to set that to SCSS slash global.scss. So this is telling Gulp, hey, we want you to use this file as the source. SCSS is going to say, cool, I'm going to import custom.scss into this file, and then it's going to go ahead and compile all of this good stuff. Next, we want to tell it, hey, we want you to go and pipe that SASS that you created. And pipe is just kind of telling it what to do next. It's kind of connecting the two commands. And then we want to go ahead and pipe again and set a destination. So gulp.dest. And we're going to set the destination to the assets folder that we created. Again, the reason being is that Shopify is very strict about what files and folders it allows onto its themes. And if it's not inside of one of these initial files, it's just not going to work. So semicolon at the end, and that should hopefully work. Let's go ahead and run gulp SASS. And hopefully what happens here is, again, it says, let me grab this destination, right? Let me go ahead and import this custom stuff into my file. And then let me go and create inside of this assets folder a custom CSS file. So let's go ahead and run it. Gulp SASS. And now we can see that it's created this global.css file. And if we go inside it, we can see our actual code for our header and our body from custom.scss. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. If not, let me know. I know it can be a little overwhelming running through all these different programs and getting them to work. But trust me, spending a little bit of time up front is going to make it so much easier to actually do the theme development for Shopify in the future. And once you get this Gulp file done for one project, all you have to do is copy and paste it into a new project. You don't have to rewrite this every single time unless you've installed a new version of Gulp that just has breaking changes. So now if we go and we actually look at our Shopify store and we reload this, the header and the body are not red, right? And the reason that it's not red is because this global.css file that we created hasn't actually been added here. So if we click inspect, and I'm just going to pull this over to the side and reduce this, we can go into the head and we can see all of the different files that are created. And here we can see that it's preloading this style sheet called theme.css, which, if we remember, is this giant 7,000 line file that was created. So what we want to do is we want to enqueue this file, this global.css file, inside of the head. And the place that we're going to do that is inside of layout. So layout is probably going to be the least used folder that you guys jump into, but it includes the actual syntax or the HTML markup of all of the pages, right? Or specifically the stuff that's not going to change. So if we go into this theme.liquid file, we can see here that it's got our head, right? If we close that, we can see our head, we can see our body, right? And it's got this HTML file that it's creating for all of the different pages, right? So let's go ahead and expand the head. And here we should be able to find our file for CSS. So here we can see this link for a style sheet. and it's loading up this theme.css file. So what we want to do is right underneath that, we want to go ahead and load our global.css, and we can change this name if we want to. Usually it's going to be based on the name of the SCSS file that you've created. So if you want to name this something like custom, that's fine. If you want to give it a different name entirely, that's okay. And it's just going to grab the asset URL, which is /assets, and it's going to look for this file. So we can get rid of some of this other stuff that we don't need. We leave type, but we don't need this media print or onload. I don't think. If we do, we'll come back and we'll add it. But for now, let's go ahead and save that. And let's go ahead and run that theme watch command. And we're going to do that again with the --allow-live flag. So now it's watching for changes to our theme. Let's go ahead and save this theme.liquid file. You'll see that it says processing and updated. Let's go ahead and save this global.css file. Again, processing and updated. And now, hopefully, if we reload this, we should see some of those changes come through. And now you can see that our body is in fact red. Now, if we come in here and we look at the header, we can see why it might not be red. And that's because it's using a class that is beating out the specificity. So we'll want to, instead of using header, we'll want to use .site header instead. So let's come in here, and we're not going to actually change this CSS directly. We're going to change this custom.scss, and we're going to change header into .site header. Then we'll have to go ahead and run Gulp SASS. That'll go ahead and compile the updated global.css file. You can see here that it's changed header to .site header. And because we have our theme watch, it's automatically watching for changes, and it's going and it's gonna update the actual live site automatically. Now you can see that we've got the red in our header. And if we wanted to, we could come in here and we can say, hey, we actually want to update, this site header, mobile nav, whatever, to be red as well. So we'll grab that class, and then let's open up VS Code, come back into our custom.scss, and we'll add here as well that additional change, or that additional class that we want to change. Let's save it. We'll run Gulp SASS. That'll update our global.css file, and themekit is automatically watching for these changes. So all we have to do at this point is reload our site, and we should see everything in red. So that's not working. Why is that? Some CSS troubleshooting for now. Did I miss something here? Let's test to see if we add this style to the inspector style sheet by creating plus new style rule, that it will actually work. So it should work. Let's see what happened here. We've got this global.css file, site header mobile nav. Should be working. For whatever reason, it's not looking at this global.css. So I'm going to cancel this. and theme watch one more time, run gulp SASS once more, and let's see if that fixes it for us. And there we go. For whatever reason, it stopped watching, but now you can see that everything is red. So let's move on to the next step, which is, again, I try to automate as much of this stuff as possible when we're developing, which means that I don't actually want to come in here and run Gulp SASS, and I don't want to come in here and run theme watch every single time that I want to come and make a change. So we're going to actually create an additional task here in our Gulp file, and we want this task to watch to see if we make any changes to any of our SASS files. If we make a change to our SASS file, we want it to automatically run Gulp SASS. And at the same time, I'd like for it to automatically run theme watch -- allow - live. And what that's going to do is it's going to take all of this and instead of running two different commands manually, it's going to allow us to run one command, watch for changes, and automatically push things up as we're developing so that we can go and start making changes much more quickly without having to actually come in and run all of this stuff manually. So let's go ahead and let's create a new task. So gulp.task, and this is going to be called watch. Inside of that, we'll pipe a function, and if you need this code, again, I'll make this repository public. You can go ahead and you can download it from GitHub. I'll put the link in the comments once we're done, and inside of the description for this video if you're watching it after the fact. So you can just download it, but of course, feel free to pause the video and go ahead and type this stuff out if you need to. So inside, we're going to do gulp.watch, and we're going to tell it what files we want it to look at for changes. And of course, we want it to look at files inside of this SCSS folder. So we'll go ahead and type in SCSS /*, and this is telling it to look inside of any folders or subfolders inside of that parent folder. So any folders inside of this, it'll go ahead and it'll watch. In my case, we don't need to do this because we don't have any folders. But if you go and actually bring things in and start doing subfolders, remember to do ** instead of just star. But since we have just two files right now, and we pretty much only needed to look at these, we'll go ahead and leave it at /star.scss. Then we'll go ahead and tell it to run SASS inside once it sees a change. So it's looking for a change inside of this folder. If you see a change, go ahead and run SASS. Next, we want to go ahead and run a themekit command. So we'll do themekit, which we declared up here, remember? And we'll want to run a command to go ahead and watch themekit as well. So next we'll have to declare the environment. And the way that we can do that is by looking inside of our config file. And if we go into, well, is it config? Let's see here. Our config.yaml. And here you can see what environment you have set up. It should be development if you've been following us so far. But come into this config.yaml and you'll be able to actually see for sure. So here we've got this environment, and we'll go ahead and set it to development. All right. So now let's go ahead and test this out. We'll run, let me go to PowerShell. Let me stop that, and let's run gulp watch. So we've got this error that we need to go ahead and fix, and this is for this themekit command called watch. It says cannot make changes to a live, right? We know that, so we'll want to do dash dash allow dash live, save it, and try that one more time. Gulp watch. Okay, so this is not working, which totally sucks. So let's look at the documentation for this Shopify theme kit. And let's see what we can fix here. So it looks like it takes this parameter called flag object, which is a flag, which includes flags for the theme kit command. So here we can see how this would go. We can pass in a string for the command, which is watch, and then with separated by a comma, we can pass in a flag object. So let's go ahead and try it that way. Identifier is expected. Let's see what it means. So it's not expecting a string. Let's try it like that. Oh, you know what it was? Dot instead of comma. Silly. Okay, so let's try that one more time. Gulp what? All right, unknown flag. Dash dash 0. What does it mean by that? Let's try just allow live. And this is the part of development where persistence really pays off. Let's see if we can find documentation that covers this stuff specifically. And we have this open. Let's go into the actual documentation here. So this is supposed to be an object. All flags specified in the theme kit documentation are available, but in camel case rather than in flag form. Oh, okay. So let's try that again. And we're just going to do this in camel case. So allow live. So camel case, if you're not sure what that is the first word is lowercase, and then the second word has a capital to start. So let's try that again, and let's see if that works. Gulp watch. Nope, still an issue. Let's try to pass it not as a string because we're supposed to pass it as an object. No, I'm actually looking at this, and I think that we might have an issue here with how this is written. Let's see. No, that should be okay. Gulp watch. Now it's saying allow live is not defined. Let's see. So we have to set it to true. And we might have to put this inside of some brackets as well. So let's take a look here and allow live true. Gulp watch. Oh, missing. At least it's a different error, right, guys? Missing this after argument. But why though? What if we passed it down here? Kind of the way the documentation does it here. See how it has environment development? That means that we should be able to pass a flag right on top of that. Save it. Gulp watch. Okay, still. See what we're doing wrong. Oh, we accidentally deleted a comma here. One more time. Gulp watch. It works. All right, we did it. So here we're passing in a command, a themekit command called watch, and then we're passing in some specific settings. We have allow live set to true, and then the environment set up. So in theory, now if we come into our custom.scss and we change this variable, or we create a new variable, let's say that maybe the client didn't want their website all in red. I wonder why. They wanted it in green. So now we can go ahead and do color green, and let's go ahead and set that to green, and we'll go ahead and change this variable from color red over to color green, and let's save it. So now it's automatically looking to see for the change. It's compiling our global.css file, and it's seeing that that changed and pushing it up to our environment. So if we go and we refresh, our website is now green instead of red. So we've successfully set up Git to track our changes. We've successfully set up Gulp to manage our tasks. We've successfully set up SASS to create our custom CSS file. And now we can go and start actually customizing our theme in a non-destructive way, meaning we don't have to go into the Shopify editor, and we don't have to just start changing things without being able to make any changes, or without being able to track our changes, excuse me. So there's one more thing that I want to do, and that is to minify our CSS file. Because if we come in here and we look at the head, let's look at this theme file, open a new tab. You can see that it's not minified, which is so strange because it makes the file much larger than it has to be. If we're going to be loading up a second CSS file, ideally we would have that at least be minified. So let's see here. Let's look for our global.css. Here we go. That's all of our code. Let's go ahead and let's create a new Gulp task very quickly that will go ahead and manage that minification process for us. Let's go back into our Gulp file and let's install a new Gulp dependency to actually minify this stuff for us. So let's pull up Gulp clean CSS. And let's go ahead and install this. I'm going to go ahead and stop this Gulp watch task. And we're going to go ahead and run npm install gulp-clean-css. That's going to go ahead and install it, add it to our package.json. You can see that right here. Now let's go ahead and include that as a variable inside of our Gulp file. So clean, and we'll require that package, which was Gulp clean CSS. Very cool. Save that. Now let's go ahead and let's create a task that'll minify this for us. Or actually what we want to do is take this SASS task that's already running, and then we're going to take this actual command, and right after we compile SASS, we'll want to go ahead and type that to a new command, and we're just going to want to run clean. And then you can optionally throw in some flags here. We're going to throw in a compatibility flag, and we're just going to make sure that it is compatible with Internet Explorer 11. Don't know who the heck is still using Internet Explorer 11, but we want to make sure that the code that we create is backwards compatible. So let's go ahead and let's look at our global CSS, and let's run that gulp watch command one more time. That's going to go ahead and look for changes. Let's go ahead and just make a super quick change here to our custom file. And let's say that the client didn't like green, so we're going to try blue. We're going to go ahead and change this from green to blue. Save it. That should go ahead and compile the new code. And now you can see that it's all on one line. This is how it was before, and this is how it is now. So we've taken out all the white space and we've reduced the file size substantially. So it went ahead and made that update. It minified it for us, and it automatically updated it to our website. So if we refresh it, now we can see that our website is blue instead of green. So that is pretty much all we had to do to be able to get this kind of local development workflow started. I'm going to go ahead and revert this color because it's terrible right now. So we'll go into our custom.scss and we'll just kind of comment this out for now. And we should see our website return to normal. I'm going to go ahead and remove this change as well, and we're going to commit all of our work so far. All right, so the change here we did to index.liquid. We're going to remove this stuff. We're going to save it. It'll again look for changes and push it up. If we refresh, now we're back to where we started. Okay, so we've gone and we've set up Git. So let's go ahead and use it. I'm going to stop watching it. I'm going to do git status. Here you can see all of the different files that we've changed since our last commit, right? So let's go ahead and create a commit message. So let's do git add, and then we'll add a message all in one line. And we'll say added Gulp, added SASS, and used Gulp to watch for changes. And that's fine. Fatal could not open. Oh, I might have made a mistake there on the commands. Git add message. Uh, wow, is that really not something that comes with Git? I guess I must have gotten used to it from having my own custom config files. For now, let's not worry about that. That's just an extra layer of complication. Let's git add, run git status again. All these files have been added, and let's git commit, and let's again copy that commit, added SASS, and used Gulp to watch for changes. Let's go ahead and push that up. So let's go ahead and look at our repository. Let's go ahead and reload that. And here you can see all of our commits. We created a README file. We added all the initial theme files for debut theme. And now we've added SASS and used Gulp to watch for changes. So I'm going to take a quick bathroom break. I'll be right back. And when we come back, we're going to actually come in here and we're going to create our own custom section. So we looked at some of the sections that are already here that your theme already comes with. Let's go ahead and get a refresher really quickly. Go to themes, go to customize, and here we've got all these different sections. So let's go ahead and let's create our own section. So if we wanted to click add section, it would come out here. I'm not really sure how to do this, I'll be completely honest, but that's what we're here to do, right? We're here to learn, and we're here to figure out some of these intricacies of Shopify theme development. So if you've got any questions so far, definitely let me know. Let's see, I'm not sure what kind of pattern we should go with. Let's see what is missing here. Gallery, feature collection. It's the great part about themes, right? It's got so many things already there for you. You know what? Before we create our own section, we're actually going to try to extend an existing section. And I think that that would be a good starting point before we go and create something totally custom. So let's see. Let's look at our blog posts really quickly. So we don't have blog posts, but it's showing up like we do. That's interesting. Your post title, your post. Let's create a blog post for now. That's blog posts. Let's grab some lorem ipsum. And I like using the Bob Ross lorem ipsum because it's so wholesome. Now we've got all this placeholder text. Paste that in. Let's add a featured image. We're going to use Unsplash, which I need to stop using, if we're being 100% honest, because they were just acquired by Getty Images. And I am just not a fan of their business practice. Interesting story, when I was first starting out as a web designer and developer, I had just kind of grabbed a random image from the internet, not really understanding image licensing, and put it on a client website. And the client, a few months later, received an email saying, hey, you're not you're not allowed to use this image. You don't have an active license, so you either need to pay us for damages, and it was an exorbitant sum, like $3,000, or we're going to sue you guys. So that came as a huge shock. After that, I learned that Getty Images has software that crawls websites to check for unlicensed images that they own, and then they automatically have those kinds of letters go out and shake people down for money, which I just thought was ridiculous. Ever since then, I try never to use Getty Images for anything, and I always try to have image licenses for everything. Unsplash, it's still license free photos, so it's not a big deal, but generally I try to stay away from anything that they own. So this is telling me that this image exceeds the sizing requirements. So we're just going to open this up in Photoshop. You can do this in any program that you feel comfortable with. They also have online ways to resize this if you don't have Photoshop. Resize image online is a good thing to search, and then you can go and use either Adobe's online image resizer or one of these other ones that are totally free to use. But I've got Photoshop, so I'm just going to come into Photoshop. I'm going to do Control Alt I, and that's going to open up the image size settings. And we're just going to reduce this to a reasonable size. Let's say 2400 by 1600. Let's save that. And that's 2.4 megabytes, which is less than 20, exactly what we need. Now we can go ahead and exit that, and we'll go ahead and we'll add it here. Very cool. So obviously you'd want to come in here and actually edit your website SEO, add an excerpt so that it's not just grabbing the first 100 characters or so. And I'm going to set the visibility to visible, which is the same as publishing it. We're going to save it. So the reason we're doing this is I want to know whether or not it will display an image. So I'm going to save this that has our blog post. We're going to refresh our website, scroll all the way to the bottom, and it does have an image. So let's see what we can show the author. We can show a view all button. We can even change how many posts to show. So again, I'm going to go and take that bathroom break. I'll be right back, and then we'll see how we can edit one of these sections to kind of customize it on our theme. Second. All right, guys, thanks for your patience there. Let's jump right back into this. So we left off having looked at our blog posts. We were essentially going to work on customizing a pattern. So let's see what we can do here. Let's look for, let's say this this code for this specific blog post pattern. And this is one of the real benefits of using this local development environment as opposed to using the built-in editor. Because if you use the built-in editor, I'll show you exactly what some of the limitation is in my opinion. Go to customize. Go to theme actions, edit code. So if we go and we search for blog posts, nothing comes out because it's only searching for the theme name. So if we wanted to go and actually edit that section, we'd have to go to sections and we'd have to go and find it somewhere here. And potentially it would be this one, but I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to manually come down here and look to see what the name is in English. Blog pages, blog posts. So it's probably not that one. But it could be. I'm just not sure. But ideally, if we're using this kind of environment, we could just do Command or Control Shift F or Command Shift F if you're on Mac and search for blog posts. And this will automatically come in here and say, hey, we are looking for the featured dash blog pattern or section, excuse me. So the way that we can test this very easily is, again, we'll run gulp watch. That's going to run all those tasks that we wrote that's looking for changes automatically using themekit. And if we come in here and we delete all of this, I can go ahead and create an H1 that just says this is the right section. I'll close that H1, save it. It'll go ahead and push that up. And now if we reload our theme here, just reload that front end, scroll all the way down. Yep, this is the right section. So again, that's one of those limitations of using this built-in editor. I'm not a big fan of it. That's why I really wanted to come and sit down and figure out this local development workflow so that I can just focus on development in a much more rapid and iterative way. So one of the things that I really love to do is to add liquid support to VS Code. Just because I hate that there's no syntax highlighting, it's actually driving me insane. So let's see if that's something that we can install. Syntax highlighting and formatting for liquid. They also have Shopify liquid snippets, which is great. They even have a linter, which is very cool. It'll check for any errors. So let's start with just syntax highlighting. Let's install that to our VS Code. Come back in here, and now we actually have syntax highlighting. Hallelujah. So now this is actually much more readable for me. I can actually see what's going on. And let's take a look at this. What is this? Ooh, snippets. I actually would love to use this. Again, I'm very lazy when it comes to development. If I can get away with not having to write all of this stuff out every single time, I will take it every single time. So let's go ahead and get that installed. All right. And I'll be honest, it's a little overwhelming looking at all this code. So let's make a super simple change and let's see what happens. I'm going to refresh this. It'll give us back our blog post. So let's say this client only has one blog post, right? But we've got all this empty space, which just really sucks. So how could we make it so that instead of having 3 columns by default, we just have one very large column instead? Let's go and try to figure this out. So if we come into this feature-blog.liquid file and we scroll all the way down, we can see that it has some settings that are being passed in using the schema tag via JSON, which if you're not familiar with JSON, it's just a way to store data in these hashes. And one of the things that is being passed here is this range called post_limit. And you can see here that the minimum is 3 and we want it to be 1. We also want the step to go to 1. We can leave the default at 3. Let's go ahead and save that. And let's go into our editor and actually refresh here. So now you'll see that we can actually go down to 1 instead of 3. Let's go ahead and save that. And what I'm trying to look at is what changes in the actual HTML so that we can write some CSS for it. So let's scroll. And here you can see that it has this class called medium up 1/3. And if we come and we look, we can see that it has this CSS for width 33.33%. If we untick that, we can see that it gets changed and it goes to full width, which is what we want, right? So let's go ahead and let's make this small change inside of our actual theme code by creating a new class. So what we're going to want to do is instead of medium up 1/3, we're going to want this to have a class of medium up. And if you're not sure what I did there, I opened up the inspector, I clicked element classes, and then I unticked this class that it had. Then I wrote the first part of it and it said, hey, these are all of the classes that you already have in place so that you don't have to write your own CSS for it. You can just pick one of these, which is super, super handy. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, we actually want one whole. So again, we can unclick that. We can put 1/3, but we want it to be one whole. And then if we come in here and we change it to 2, what we want to happen at that point, and I'll refresh the page so that we can start this process over again. We're going to inspect. We're going to go into the parent container. Do this 1/3, uncheck it. And now medium up. And let's do 1/2, right? 1/2. So let's do that. Let's get it to the point where instead of having just 3 blog posts as the default, you can have 1, 2, or 3 as a customization. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go back into our blog posts and hopefully they give us a duplicate option. More actions. Wow, there's no duplicate option on here. What a bummer. Okay, well, let's see if we edit this blog post, if there's a duplicate option. Nope, there isn't. So we'll just have to go ahead and do it ourselves. So I'm going to change this to test blog post 1. save it, go back, add a new blog post. That's blog post 2. We'll get some more Bob Ross lipsum or lorem ipsum, copy that, paste it in. Let's grab another photo from Unsplash. This one. This is a sponsored image. Let's grab this one. MailChimp has some great images. All right. Now we're probably going to have to go through the process of resizing them. If we look at the size here, they look like they'll be okay. Just drop it in. Okay, yeah, so they're too large. So let's go through and resize them. I'm gonna go and open up Photoshop to do that. Again, you can do it online. Just search for resize images online. But we've got the Creative Suite, so why not use it? All right. Let's go ahead and resize that. Same size as the other one, 2400, 1600, save, close, open the other one, resize, Control-Alt-I or Command-Alt-I on Mac, 2400 by 1600, save. And generally, I recommend you guys try to keep the same size when you guys are creating blog post images, just so that it's consistent throughout. I'm not sure if Shopify will automatically resize it for you, but as a general, rule of thumb, same size blog post images or featured images are ideal. And this 16:9 ratio is also ideal because that's what most social media platforms use, right? So let's go ahead and close that, drop in our image again. That works. Save it. Now we've got our 2, go back, and we'll hold off on doing 3 because I want to see exactly what it looks like if we don't do this customization. So let's go ahead and reload this. And it's only loading 1, which is cool. But let's try here. So it's actually trying to load all 3 of them for some reason. Is it? Oh, you know what happened? Sorry about that, guys. This is set to hidden. I was supposed to set this to visible. Oh, don't discard it. Save. All right. So let's try refreshing that one more time. There we go. So we've got our 2 blog posts. And now let's get it to the point where we can actually come in here and change it from 3 columns down to 2 or 1 and actually have the CSS change for us. So change it from 2 to 1. It actually will load just the 1 or the 2, but it doesn't change the CSS. So let's go in and let's make these changes in our theme code. So let's go up. Well, let me see what's in here. Yeah, we don't need any of that schema stuff. Let's see. All right, so here we can see where the code exists. And by default, there is no logic here. It will just say, hey, you have to use 1/3. There's no way around it. And what we want to do is we want to come in here and see if it's equal to 1, and then we want to show 1 whole. And then if it's equal to 2, and then we want to show 1/2. So I'm very new to Liquid in general. I have used Liquid in the past, specifically for Jekyll websites. But in terms of creating this kind of logic, it's a little bit new to me. So what I like to do is I like to just come in here and create a comment. And you can use an HTML comment, or apparently you can use a Liquid comment. And if you're not sure how to do that, Liquid comment. And it'll show you how to add anything. So here, if we put it in between this comment and end comment tags, it'll go ahead and turn it into a comment. So let's do that and just get used to writing liquid. Luckily, we've got our syntax highlighter, and we should have this other thing that we set up, which allows us to just write and comment, and it'll go and handle the rest for us, which is great. So what do we want this to do? We want to check if columns equal to 1, then change class to medium up dash dash one whole. And then if columns is equal to 2, then change class to medium up 1/2. Else class stays medium up 1/3. Okay, so that's pretty much what we want to go ahead and check. So let's see how we would do this if else conditional in liquid. Control flow. That sounds right. They've got else if else, which is great. So if the column is equal to 1, do this. Else if column is equal to 2, do this. Else do that. That's perfect. This is exactly what we want to do. So let's go ahead and just write down the skeleton for this. Do if, and we can just do if else with white space. So if condition, else condition. Oh, I don't think we need the white space. There we go. All right. So now let's look for the condition that we need to be true. And what we probably need to do is look for this section settings. And then instead of, is it post limit? Let's go take a look over. Posts. Just inspect this real quick. I'm not sure. Yeah, it doesn't actually say. So let's go into our code. And if we come down here, we should be able to see what it was that we changed here. Yeah, post limit. So here we have the ID, right? It's a range. That's what we changed, right? If we come back here, we can see that this is a range from 1 to 12. And the ID is called post_limit. So we're going to copy that. We're just going to come in here. And we're going to say if section settings post limit. Let's go back, look at our syntax or our actual documentation is equal to. So equal is setting it equal to something. Equal to is going to return true or false, excuse me. So it's going to check to see if this is true. If it's true, it's going to do that. If it's false, it's going to move on. If the second conditional is true, it's going to do this. If it's false, it's going to move on, and then it's just going to do that. So pretty straightforward. If else is very common in programming languages, so very similar. So if settings post limit is equal to 1, then we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to return an H1 for now. We'll write our code correctly in just a second. I just want to make sure that it works. Post limit is 1. Very cool. Else. And we don't want else, right? We want else if. Else if. And in this case, there's no E at the end. So just making a note of that. So we're going to create another one right on top of this. And it's going to be else if. Just make sure that got the right spacing here. Else if section.settings.post limit is equal to 2. Now we can say that this post limit is 2. Else post limit is 3 plus. Go ahead and save that. Open up our terminal. We still have this watch command running, which is super handy. That means we don't have to push anything. We can just come in here, look at our store, refresh this, and now it says, hey, the post limit is 2. The post limit is 2. Very cool. So now let's actually get this turned into some useful code. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to replace this li class here. Yeah, we're going to grab this li class. I'm going to indent this properly. We're not animals. And now we're going to say, hey, if it's 1, then what I want you to do is do 1 whole, right? Looking at our comment up here, we can see that that should be done. Next, if the limit is 2, then we want it to be 1/2. And if the limit is 3 or more, then we can go ahead and use the original code. So again, here's the comment that we made. This comment just explains our thinking here. If the column's equal to 1, then let's change the class. If the column's equal to 2, then we can change the class. Else, if the column is equal to 3, then we can change the class. This is not the best way to do it. We're going to refactor it in just a second, but this should be enough to test to see if it works. So let's go ahead and save it. Going to go ahead and update. There we go. Now let's go ahead and reload this and see what's up. Now we can see that it's set to 2. We've got our 2 columns in place. Super cool. Let's go ahead, refresh our customizer here. And let's change it to 1. Very cool. Now it's set to 1. Looks like I put in an extra opening bracket somewhere in there. So let's just go and find it. Where's that? Did I? Did I put an opening bracket somewhere? Oh, here it is. Oh, right at the top. There we go. Save it. Go ahead and reload that. Yeah, go ahead and reload it. Okay. So now we can go and set it to 1, set it to 2. We can set it to 3. Very cool. We don't have a third, obviously. So that's fine. We can set it to 2, which looks really nice for our needs. And this is a customization that our theme couldn't do before that now it's able to do. There's another thing that I'd like to do, which is see if we can increase that size of that image if it's set to 1. So let's go ahead and save it and see what we've got here and what our options are. So this is where writing some custom code is going to come in handy. So we're going to just write some custom code out here to test, and then we'll go ahead and we'll add that in just a second. you can see that it's actually adding its own style here for its max width. So let's see what's going on in the code that's adding that. Search for style. Got our image style here. But I'm not seeing any width. I see height, right? But I don't see any width here. The height is set to 345. So let's see what we can do with some custom CSS. Let's see. Let's grab this class. And let's see if we say, if we see this class, let's just set the width to 100%. And let's set that to important. What happens? And then let's unset max width. And we've got the same issue here on the image. So let's grab one of these classes. In this case, I'm gonna want to grab this article grid image class. And let's go ahead and say that this is also set to width 100%. And max width is unset. And now we've got this weird looking image. Now we can go ahead and set the height to auto for both the container and the image. Let's see why that's not working. Grab that, scroll down, because we've got a max height. Let's try max height here. Height. Height. Take a look at that again. Article. Yeah, it's not even showing up. Oh, it is. It's down here. But it's not working. Even though it's got important. A little strange. Let's figure out why that is. Set it to 500 pixels. So it does work. Let's set that to unset then. And let's just unset the max height. I think that auto, if I remember correctly, auto is not actually something you can set for this. There we go. So without width. Now there is going to be an issue here. And the issue is that we are applying this to any class that has or any pattern that has this class, and we want to specify a little bit better here. So let's go and actually say that this code should really only affect grid items that have a class of one hole. We're going to do that by just adding it right in front. Whoop. There we go. And this code, it's all the same, right? Yeah, this code is exactly the same. So what we'll do is copy this, delete that. We'll just do a comma and apply it there. That works. So let's go ahead and get this written in SASS. We've got this as a good starting point. But now let's go into our custom.css. We'll delete all this other stuff that we had. We'll paste in what we've got. So the cool thing about SASS is that we can actually save some space here. And the way that we'll do that is by nesting some of this stuff. So I'm going to rewrite it using .grid item medium one whole. And then inside of that, I want to go ahead and target the wrapper, and I want to target the image. And the code that I want to execute is to unset the max width, set that to important, and the max height, set that to important. So I don't think we need width 100%. I could be wrong, but let's go ahead and save that. Let's look at our global CSS. And if you need to read this in a way that's not condensed like this, there's an extension that you can use called Beautify. And I can do Control-Shift-P or Command-Shift-P on Mac, and I can beautify the file to read it a little bit more cleanly. I use this sometimes just to make sure that everything looks okay. And yep, this is exactly the code that we wrote, but we wrote it in SCSS. Whoop, there we go. So it looks a little bit nicer and easier to maintain. So now if we refresh this, I'm going to do this in a new tab so we don't lose it. Now we can see we've got our full width image. Very cool. But we still need some code for when it is 2 columns. Because if we go and we set it to 2 columns, actually, if it's 2 columns, it works. It just works. So the code that we needed to customize was really just for 1 column, but now we can have 1 blog post, 2 blog posts, or 3 blog posts instead of just the 1. Very cool. So I'm pretty happy with that. Let's go ahead and commit this work. I'm just going to create a new terminal. I'm going to do git status. This is all the code that we changed. I'm going to do git add. Let's actually delete some of these comments that we had, because I use comments to essentially tell me how to write some of the code so I can get it out of my head and onto some actual like a solid way of approaching it. But we don't need this anymore, so we'll go ahead and delete it. Now we can still optimize this if we want to. And the way that we could do this is, instead of loading in this li 3 different times, we can actually just have the li where it was. And inside of this, we can actually just put some sort of variable, right, that will handle this actual class. So let's do that, because I want to learn a little bit more about liquid variables. And we still have a little bit more time before I got to jump off the stream and jump onto a client call. So I think it'll be really interesting to learn how to do this the right way. So let's do liquid variables. Let's look at how to do it. One second, guys. My coffee got cold because my cup died. All right. So there's 2 things that are essentially 2 different tags. Are they tags? I'm not sure what they're called. Yeah, there's 2 types of tags, it looks like. There's one that has logic, which is this curly bracket and then this percentage sign. And there's one that outputs things, and that's just the double curly bracket. So we're going to assign a variable based on the logic, and then we're going to just output that variable. So let's come in here, and what we're going to do is, instead of having this, we're going to go ahead and do a curly assign. And we're going to call this variable post. And let me make sure, because there are naming conventions when it comes to variables. So they use underscores. Okay. I just want to follow the conventions, keep my code as clean as possible. So we're going to call this post column class. And we're going to assign a value of this. We're going to call it whole. Next, let's do that again for this one, and we're going to call it half. We're going to do it one more time for this other one, and we're going to call it third. So now, instead of having all of these LIs coming out, we're just going to assign a different variable to it. And then inside of here, we're going to output that variable right here at the very end. 1-variable post column class. So let's see if that works. I've never done this before, but in theory, according to the documentation, that should work. Just make sure that this is still watching for changes. Yes, it is. So now if we refresh this and we inspect it, we can see that it is actually passing this in. And if we're not sure if we actually changed anything, we can break it. We can do 1, 2, 3, just to make sure it's actually outputting this stuff. Go and refresh this guy, and it should break all of our styles that we wrote. Yep, 1, 1, which is not what we want. We want 1 whole. So let's revert that. Okay, and now we've essentially customized this guy to be able to take 1, 2, or more columns. Very cool. So let's go into PowerShell and get status. Let's git add all of our work. Git commit. Customized featured blog section to be able to use 1 or more columns. Now we can go ahead and git push origin master. And we've got a new commit that should be coming through here. Very cool. All right, I've got only about 20 minutes left, but I think it would still be really helpful to kind of dive in and try to make a brand new block. So let's go ahead and, or a brand new section, excuse me. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, if you come into your backend editor, you go to your themes, and you can obviously come and customize. Whoops, sorry. You can come and customize your theme, go to theme actions, edit code. So many steps to edit your code. But if you wanted to come into sections and add a new section, and you click add a new section, you can go ahead and name it, and it'll give you naming conventions automatically. So we're going to do this just to see how it works. Create a new section. And what do we call this? Let's just call this test, because this is just a test. Now, this will automatically create a schema markup or a markup for it. Now you can see the naming convention is test.liquid, and then you've got all this other stuff in it. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste this, delete the file, and we're going to do it here. Inside of sections, do new file, do test.liquid, and we're going to see how this is structured. It's got its HTML, then it's got its schema. We don't need to pass in any style sheet or JavaScript stuff. So section name, we'll call it a test section. And for settings, we'll leave it blank for now. And let's just go ahead and add an H1 tag here. Go ahead and save it. Again, that pushed up to our theme. Let's go into our backend, refresh there. Now, if we click add section, we should be able to see a test section somewhere. And we're not seeing it, which means that we must have missed something here. So let's go and see if there are some settings that we're supposed to pass this into. So let's go and put this in text. It looks like we have to add it to a section. Here you can see settings. I'm not exactly sure. So we're going to look up some documentation. And if you guys ever get stuck developing themes, definitely spend some time just looking at the documentation. It's really going to help you guys out. So we've done this. Looks like we do have to pass in some settings here. They're passing in two different types. Text box, text, or text and rich text. And what we want to do is we want to create a dynamic section. So there are static sections, which is, I guess, what we created, which you would have to actually go ahead and add to your template by calling the section. We want to create a dynamic section, meaning it's added to this section or this theme editor, which is a little bit different, I guess. But let's see, to make a dynamic section, we need to add presets to the section file. Presets will determine how the section appears in the theme editor. And it must have a name and a category. Okay, well, ours doesn't have a category. It has a name, but it has no category. Let me go ahead and just switch myself over really quick so you guys can read the documentation. Cool. Once these presets are added, the sections will automatically be available to the index page. They're not included in the base file when you click add new sections on the theme editor, but adding them manually is straightforward. So presets is what we need in order to get it to show up. So let's go ahead and just copy and paste this stuff. That's liquid. We've got settings. Just make sure. Is this inside of settings? Settings is. So presets, we'll call this test section. Create a new category called test category. Let's save that. It'll push it up. Let's refresh. Let's take a look. Add section. We've got our test category and our test section. If we click test section, now we can see our H1. And again, I've got an extra character added somewhere. Silly mistakes, I know, but it happens to the best of us. Right here at the bottom. So now we've got our test section. You can select it, but it has no content or settings. So let's go ahead and make a couple of different changes here that'll allow us to override how it appears. So there's two things I guess that I would want to do here for this H1, and obviously they already have text sections, so this is, you know, you should use the section that already exists in your theme before trying to create something new. But since we're short on time, let's go ahead and see what we can get done. We'll want to pass in two things. The first I'd like to be able to control is the color of the text, and the second thing I'd like to be able to control is the alignment. So left alignment, center alignment, or right alignment. So let's see how we would do that. Again, let's come into here, and here we have our settings, and we can go ahead and pass in these different things here. We've got these types, so let's look up liquid setting types. Let's see what we can find here. So they do have a type of color. There we go. These are the different types, basic input setting types that we can use: text, text areas, radio select, checkbox range, and number. What about color? Oh, so there are specialized input setting types. Very cool. So there's color, font picker, collection, products, blog, page, link list, URL, video URL, rich text, HTML, article, and image picker. So ours is pretty straightforward. We want color. So let's go ahead and copy this little hash, and we'll add this in. Doing a lot of copying because I just don't have the experience to write this off the cuff. Over time, the more you do this, I'm sure you'll get better and better knowing what to put. Okay, so let's give this an ID. So this is gonna be color. We'll call this test color. And for default, we're just gonna go weird, blue. Next, we're gonna do this one more time, but we're gonna do it with alignment. Supposed to be. Let's do this one more time. We'll call this test line. Drop down alignment, and default will be left. Save that, push it up. Look at our back. I'll save it. Let's see. Section has no content or set. Why? I piped some settings in for you here. Did I break something? Invalid schema. Setting with ID test color. Default must be a CSS color. This has to be a CSS color. SLI ID is not a valid attribute. These are not valid attributes. Is dropdown not valid? Oh, it's supposed to be select, not dropdown. Little things like that will really mess you up. Try to save. Okay. Now at least there's only one. Invalid schema setting with ID test line options is required. Oh, I see. Options, because there's supposed to be more than one. Duh. Okay. Let's go to select and let's look at these documentation. We have to pass in options for them to pick. Got it. Type ID label and then options for that. Does it select? There we go. I have an example. And we don't have to put group, I guess, which is good because I don't want to put. I have no idea what it means. We'll just do value and type. All right, and we're gonna do three. There's three, right? There's left, center, right. Save that. Invalid JSON tag and schema. Doesn't really tell me a whole lot about where though. Come on now. Invalid JSON. What do you mean? See this example. Let's see if it has to do with this code that we just wrote or not. You know what? Just get rid of all. Let's see if we're able to just push this one up. Yeah. So the issue is definitely in this code here. I just wish it told me where. Valid JSON tag. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and lint this. Go to JSON lint online. I'm gonna run this through the JSON validator. I'm gonna try to validate this. All right, error on line 1. What? Oh, don't worry about that. Not JSON, dude. Validate JSON. No, you're good. That's fine, guy. Just want this JSON valid. All right, line 26. For presets. There's presets. Why? Because there's a curly brace right here. Oh, because there's a comma. Validate JSON. Is it 1 comma really? It would be. There we go. Yeah, so unfortunately, the stack trace is terrible when it comes to some of these Shopify errors. So if you get stuck like that and it's telling you there's a JSON error, you're not sure where, you're going to want to lint your JSON. You can go to jsonlint.com, just drop in that JSON hash, which is just this hash of data, and it's going to tell you where the error is exactly. You can probably do this through VS Code, but I know that this is a free and easy tool to use, so that's what we went with. All right, so let's go ahead, refresh this, and hopefully we should see our settings now for our block. Now we can see our color and our alignment. We've got our default set. So let's go ahead and override these. I want the text to be red, and I want the alignment to be center, but nothing happens. And that's because there's just no CSS code that we've written to go ahead and handle that. So let's go ahead and change it a little bit. We should be able to do that here in the style sheet section. So let's go ahead and make that change. Now we're going to do a couple of other things just because I don't want to target every H1 on the page. We're going to go ahead and we're going to create a div, and we're going to call this a test section. And we're going to put our H1 inside of that div. And that'll allow us to be a little bit more specific when we select that H1. So let's actually go and let's create that section for the style sheet down here. And now we can go ahead and say for test section or div anything with a class of test section and the H1 inside of it. We want to set the color equal to this setting here. Let's see how we would do. I'm thinking it would be section dot settings. Settings or settings dot test color. I could be totally wrong, but we're gonna try it. Go ahead and take a look here. Refresh. Expect a little bit here. Let's see if they talk about styling here. I mean, we're doing it. It's just not working. Why is that? Let's try it a different way, which is not what I'd want to do, but I want to make sure that we can get this to work right now. Let me make sure I don't need to pipe in important here. Just to double make sure. But if we come in here and we say .test section h1 color red or Rebecca purple, it does change. So it's just not actually passing in this style sheet stuff. So let's make a quick change here. Section.settings.test. I'm gonna delete this for now. Come back to this. You can comment it out. I'll just delete it. And let's come into the actual H1. Now we can do style equals color. And we'll just add that in. That doesn't seem like it's gonna work according to the highlighting. Skipped. That's not good. Let's refresh and take a look. Oh, it actually worked. That's so hacky though. Not a fan of that at all. All right, well, let's see if there's any alignment classes that we can add to this thing. Yeah, align dash dash center. We'll center it. Let's do that really quick. Align dash dash. But are there other ones? Sorry, 1 second. There's middle right and middle left. But we can just go ahead and do text align. And we'll do the same hacky thing for now. Test. Let's align. Save it. Refresh, and hopefully now it's red and centered. Here we go. Yeah, not super clean. Obviously you'd want to get this done in the style sheet, or you'd want to apply a class to it instead of having it just inline here based on what that is. But for now, you know, I think that's good enough. We essentially came in and we went from not having a Shopify account to setting up a Shopify partners account. We went and set up themekit so that we can actually develop locally on our computer and push up to a Shopify environment. Then we set up Git, and we actually got it to the point where we can go and we can commit our work, which I'm going to do right now. And then we actually installed SASS on our project, and then used Gulp to go ahead and create tasks to watch for changes in those SASS files, compile it into CSS, and then actually push that up automatically to themekit so that our local development environment is streamlined and super easy for us to use. All that's left to do now is go ahead and commit our work and wrap up for the day. So git commit -m. We're gonna do added a test section with inline styles. All right. Go and check that our commit went through. Now we can see all the work that we've done on our theme, and we're in a good place to go ahead and pass this off to a developer if they want to help us work on it, or we can just pick this up another day and get it to the point where we're comfortable pushing it up to our own web store or over to a client's web store. So, well, if you're still here, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. I know that it was a lot to take in, but I think we got a lot done given, where we started. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, let me know in the comments below. I'd be happy to go ahead and get those answered for you. If you guys like content like this, please drop me a like. It really helps out the channel a lot. Really consider subscribing. I'm really trying to get to the point where we have at least 100 subscribers. We're only, I think, 25 away, which is really, really exciting. And yeah, this recording is going to be up for about 72 hours before it gets pushed over to our private Patreon channel. If you want to support this kind of content, you want to continue to learn with me, consider checking out my Patreon at, I think it's patreon.com/uxhacks. And all you'd have to do is commit, a couple of dollars a month, and you'll be able to get access to these full live streams and the ability to recommend content for future live streams. So if you're interested in learning design, you're interested in learning development, you're interested in learning UX and how to build websites that actually convert traffic, then definitely give me a follow. Check me out on Instagram, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.